And this is Quackaholics Anonymous, episode 20. And this time around, I wanted to talk about something that came up in a discussion with another Quackaholic that I was arguing with. I'm going to give up saying that I'm going to stop arguing with him. All right, just forget about it. I keep saying in videos over and over again, I'm going to quit arguing with him. And I'm really I guess I'm powerless over that for right now, or maybe it could be because I enjoy doing it. I mean, I think that's really more likely the scenario. It's not a powerless disease to argue with irrational, nonsensical people, so much as it is. I do kind of like it. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing or not. I'm not going to analyze that. But I ran across a particular argument this week that I feel actually bears worth talking about, even devoting a whole video to, because it's an argument that I used often when I was a cult member of Quackaholics Anonymous. I would tell people all the time that we're starting to have concerns and worries and issues about the types of things that was going on in AA, the types of things they were preaching, this very same line that I was being given to this week. And that is, take what you like and leave the rest. And I said that to I don't know how many countless people over the years, and in one way, it's a disgraceful thing to admit because rather than break away from the herd, the tribe, or whatever it is, and actually tell them the truth in terms of saying, something, I'm having these same concerns, I'm seeing these same things you're seeing, I'm a little bit worried about the same issues you're worried about to these people when they would come to me with certain I get not only just behaviors of the members in the group, but the type of stuff it preached and all of the other dog rolling garbage that I cover in these videos. But instead of doing that, I would actually say, well, um, it doesn't mean you have to quit AA because you don't like the behavior of the members. You don't have to necessarily agree with everything in AA anyway. All you got to do is just take what you like and leave the rest. And sadly enough, I've seen that very argument used to pull the wool over the eyes of many people. But I've also seen it used as an excuse when you point out all the inherent things that are just bad about the AA cult altogether. People say, well, I go to meetings all the time and I don't let it bother me. I just take what I like and leave the rest. So let's examine that. Take what you like and leave the rest. What exactly is there to like and what exactly is there to leave? I know that there was an old timer asshole that I had from a sponsor. In fact, it was, well, the fat pile of shit sponsor that said, uh, that's an Al-Anon thing. That's an Al-Anon thing. That doesn't apply to an alcoholic. You know how I just love it how they have everybody so divided and subdivided into alcoholics, addicts, Al-Anons, adult children of alcoholics, and everything else, and what set of rules and principles, that's the joke, apply to whom. But that was his easy way of getting out of it. Well, the people that applies to are not alcoholic, of course. How could I have been so stupid not to have figured that out on my own? Oh, wait, I can't figure out anything on my own when I'm in the cult because my mind is all defective and screwed over, and I have to turn it over to another defective, screwed up loser to do my thinking for me. Take what you like and leave the rest. Okay, what is there to like about AA exactly? I know that probably a lot of people out there were going to say, there is a sense of belonging at times. Now, that sense of belonging that I felt in the early days, in my first couple of years, uh, didn't really pan out too well because I realized that in order to fit in AA, you have to follow some kind of a script. You kind of have to say what's expected of you, and you kind of find out, what the right lingo is, what the right thought is. You're living in kind of some weird open market North Korea type situation where they can't actually, kidnap you or brainwash you, by locking you in a closet or shoot you or execute you or something like that. But you really quickly see the that AA is not really about sharing what you really feel like or sharing what happened and what you're like now in terms of really real world coping mechanisms to get past your alcohol abuse or your drug abuse or whatever it is that leads you into those rooms to begin with. It's more about trying to fit in, and it didn't work really well for me. I wasn't, when I first come in, I wasn't really what you would call an active participant. I kind of just sat in the back and I kind of just listened to what everybody was saying. And, besides that, I was told that I didn't have anything good to offer since I was in my disease and yada, yada. And, I didn't do too well, when I was in high school when it came to trying to fit in or say the right things or anything. I mean, I was a misfit. I was maybe a cool misfit, in my own viewpoint, looking back on it with nostalgia colored lenses. But nevertheless, I was a misfit. I wasn't popular and I wasn't liked. And I didn't really feel that desire to try to bend over and kiss up or do whatever it is you got to do to fit in. There was a period when I was a younger, much littler kid where it really bothered me to realize that, guess what? Nobody in school really likes you or any of the rest of the nerds and the losers. And when I got a little bit older, it was like, well, guess what? I don't like the assholes that are popular anyway. So what difference does it make? But I noticed real quickly on the front end of AA that there is a kind of hierarchy. There's a kind of, a kind of right speech, right thought, and all this other kind of thing. But it's all kind of phony if you just kind of sit back and observe. Now, the scales did not fall from my eyes, I guess you could say, until much later on when I had turned into a chronic relapser and was getting drunk all the time. Then you really see what it's really like. I mean, it's not just a nice little friendly neighborhood self-help group. It's really quite a cruel and malicious organization. But in terms of taking what I like and leaving the rest, you could possibly find some companionship in Quackaholics Anonymous. I know that there were people in Quackaholics Anonymous that I was actually on friendly terms with, I guess you could say, or actually, I guess what you could call, friends. But the commonalities that we had wasn't related to the cult itself. We were the kind of people that would have probably gotten along with one another had we not been in AA. Now, of course, AA will take all the credit for this and say, but you wouldn't have met them had you not been in the fellowship. Well, to be honest, considering all the negative things that happened to me in AA, I mean, I could have done without meeting a few people that, that I actually was able to get along with. It's almost like trying to say if you hadn't been in prison, you wouldn't have met a few good men here and there. Well, if I had my choice about that, I would say I'd rather not go to prison. So I actually classify that in the same category, but companionship possibly. But really and truly, when you examine the fellowship and how it operates, you've got a lot of people that are always telling you how you're defective, how you're full of character defects, how you're driven by fear, how your natural desires have warped you, and how you must do inventories and confessions. And of course, you notice in a sly, subtle way how they talk about God as you understand them and your higher power as you understand it and all of that. But they really, truly want you to run every single thought you have about God and higher power right by them so they can analyze it and decide if you're interpreting the messages correctly. It's really weird how in the 11th step they talk about, getting a conscious contact or a direct phone line to spirit of the universe, God, or whatever it is that wants you to do nothing but sit in meetings and drink coffee and accomplish nothing for the rest of your life. But yet, these sponsors are there to make sure that you're interpreting it all the right way. In other words, if you have a dream that God came to you and told you you need to leave AA meetings as soon as possible, then the sponsors need to interrupt your idea, your journey, or whatever, and they need to explain to you how you're interpreting that all wrong. God didn't send you that dream, your self-will did, which is another aspect of what's not to like about AA. What's not to like about AA is it pretends to have a market on all the religions. It pretends to speak for God. But think of the picture that AA paints of you as an individual, you as a person. It tells you that you're completely, utterly selfish, that you've never cared about anyone in your entire life, that you've never done anything good for anyone, that you've never loved your family, you never loved your wife, you didn't love your kids if you had them, you didn't love anybody, that all you did was think about yourself completely, and all you did was run riot your whole entire life, fucking everybody over until, of course, you got to AA, and then all of a sudden you were magically cured by God as a result of this. But wait a minute. You're not cured by God because at the end of step 12, you just have to start all over again from the very beginning, which is really kind of interesting to me that you make a decision to turn your will and life over to a God tyrant. You turn your mind over to him, you turn your will over to him, you turn your desires over to him to run everything, and they do stress him. There's no ifs, ands, or buts what they're talking about here. Uh, you do all of that, meaning you're pretty much just an empty vessel being propelled like a robot programmed to make all the decisions in your life. You can't make any on your own. So exactly why would you need to have to do any other steps after that, right? You've turned your will over, and in step 7, you've made a demand that God just remove all your character defects. In fact, take away everything that's essentially you and just run you like you're an empty vessel, a machine, a cog in the machine. And you have to remain like that for the rest of your life. If you ever form an independent thought, if you ever make a decision based on yourself, which is what a lot of normal, healthy people do, then you have turned your back on AA God, and AA God is going to make you drunk again. So in other words, the picture that AA is painting, outside of the fact that you're totally helpless over, getting drunk, that you have to surrender constantly, that you're not a good person, there's nothing inherently good, moral, decent about you, that even when you do a good act for another human being, you're only doing it out of self-interest. And without God controlling your every thought and your every move and listening to your every action and peeking into the bedroom once in a while during sex acts to make sure that you're, just screwing a newcomer over or dealing pills to a sponsee or whatever it is, the things that God in AA doesn't worry about. He doesn't worry about a double-digit old-timer, fucking somebody over or exploiting someone. But as for you, you're under constant surveillance for the rest of your life. Your thoughts must be policed, and if you ever feel the desire to relax this celestial North Korea that you're living under, you're going to get drunk and die. I don't really see that as an attractive element of staying in AA. I mean, I don't want to take that home with me. Tomorrow morning I got to go to work and I got to make business decisions. Oh, wait, I can't. I just made a thought based on self. And now I'm going to get drunk and die because of it. Doesn't seem very attractive to me. Does it seem very attractive to you guys out there watching that? I mean, that's not something I would want to take. That's something I would probably want to leave. So let's see. We can leave the dictator God behind in AA. We can leave the concept of powerless and unable to make my own decisions behind in AA. So what is it we're going to take with us? The fact that we got to list our so-called character defects without ever listing our good ones for the rest of our lives over and over and over again, because there's really no point in doing any of this stuff, because by the time you get to 12, you got to start all over again from the very beginning. Doesn't sound like God is really all powerful. I mean, they say you've got some kind of direct line of communication to God, and God has now made you the ultimate recruiter to AA. That's what the whole, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, carry this message to others and all this other garbage. What that really means is now I'm a totally brainwashed fool, and now what I got to do is recruit more brainwashed fools to follow me. Otherwise, I'll get drunk again. Okay, that doesn't sound too attractive to me either, as a matter of fact, as far as taking it and leaving the rest. So I think I'm going to leave that there too. So let's try to find something really good about AA that we would want to take home with us and what we would want to leave. Okay, let's see. You don't want to be a puppet for God, so we don't want that. You don't want to necessarily believe you're powerless and helpless the rest of your life, do you? Do you really want to say that you haven't had a drink in 5 years, 10 years, 11 years, 20 years, but you still could get drunk tomorrow if you don't obey every dot and tittle of the rules that AA God lays out in the Holy Big Book, and that you can only read 164 pages over and over again the rest of your life, and other than that, you have no real thoughts and no opinions? I don't know. That just doesn't sound too attractive to me. I mean, it didn't sound too attractive to me during my time in AA, but of course I made excuses and compartmentalized everything that bothered me about AA for a long time. I would just say, well, okay, this is just some people's ideas. It doesn't have nothing to do with me. And then I would see old timers fucking people over and doing all kinds of nefarious activities. And I'd say, okay, not everybody's like that. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean the program is bad, which, by the way, you can't get away with that, and you can't use that as a cop-out, and I'm going to explain that in just a second. You see, according to most AA defenders, the people who, defend AA no matter how bad it is or how many terrible things happen or how many times it gets on 48 hours like the Carla Breda murder and many other untold cases, AA members, for the most part, and the defenders will tell you that the program really works if you work it, of course. And of course, their evidence for this is old timers having all these years. Most of the time it's just an anecdotal thing. It's not nothing they can conclusively prove. Oh, it works. I haven't had a drink in 20 years. You can't explain that. It must be God and AA. That kind of, reasoning. Now, the AA program promises you that if you do these steps, that you'll never drink again. But it also promises that, your character defects will be removed. It promises you that you'll have some kind of bizarre spiritual awakening. It promises you that you'll no longer care about yourself, that self-seeking will slip away, and you'll just be this, being of pure altruism, right? Yet, I have yet to see anybody, as far as the gurus, as far as the old-timers that engaged in the most despicable of acts that everybody made excuses for. I have yet to see anybody who was long-term sobriety in AA be a walking, talking example of this bullshit they're describing. In fact, I've seen most of the gurus and most of the people running the thing to be right the opposite. I see them to be petty, tyrant, dictator-like children who get very violently upset if they don't get their extra 5 minutes near the end of the meeting. So, you would think somewhere along the way, if this program is so wonderful and this program works and this program will do all the things it promises, provided you do what they're telling you to do, that you would actually be able to show me some kind of tangible results. Something really, something more than just some braggadocio tale about how bad you used to be and how wonderful you are now, when it's very obvious you're not wonderful at all. You're just a scam artist running a new scam and with a new sales pitch. The new sales pitch is cult recruiting. And really, you want more cult recruiting so you can have more victims. You're not really interested in people actually getting sober. So I can't really honestly say a bunch of asshole gurus would be something I would want to take home for me in AA. That would be something else I would want to leave. So I'm trying to narrow down something somewhere in the AA program that you could take with you and not want to leave it behind. And I just am having a lot of trouble coming up with that. I don't like the notion of being powerless. For one thing, it's not actually scientifically sound. And the medical community has made a lot of advancements in that direction. I don't need to go into all the details. I'm sure that if you're watching this, you're aware of this too. Faith healing for mental problems, faith healing for having addictive behaviors, when I'm trying to find the actual root causes and conditions, not listing a bunch of sins, that doesn't really leave me with any desirable helpful trait in life. I didn't have anything, I didn't get anywhere closer to curing my OCD and my anxiety until I got real professional help and real medication. And I was able to do things about my own OCD that could enable me to move past the OCD. So faith healing for mental issues just doesn't sound very plausible. It doesn't sound very logical. And I can't see where it would be very attractive for people, because it's not going to help you. It's not going to help you overcome anything. It would be different if you could lay down some conclusive proof that practice and faith healing that AA promises actually produces tangible results, real tangible results in statistics. AA doesn't want to be studied, by the way. That's another kind of thing that kind of makes you think they might have something to hide. You would think, as I've reiterated many times before, if it was so wonderful, they would want to open their doors to the public. Instead, they have closed meetings. I used to wonder about closed meetings because I used to think it was for what they said. It was so people could talk about personal things that the outside world might not understand. And I realized after a little while that was bullshit, because AA members love to brag about how much they drank. They love to brag about how many crimes they committed. They love to brag about how many, whatever it is they can make up. They love to brag about being pieces of shit. So it's obvious that the closed meetings don't exist for the purposes of them not, the public may find out about me. It's obviously not that at all. I think the reason the closed meetings exist is because they don't want average, ordinary people being able to sit down in the meetings and listen to the pseudo-religious cult bullshit that they preach. I don't think too many people in the outside world, if they could sit and hear what goes on in AA and listen to the preachings of AA and listen to what's in their literature, they would be sitting there like a lot of other people who have left AA and say, you know what, these fucking people are insane. There's no way I'm going to turn my will and my brain and my life and my desires and my hopes and dreams over to these fucking losers to run it and sit here for the rest of my life accomplishing nothing, doing nothing, but running my thoughts by them to approve or disapprove, accept or reject, and in turn becoming another empty parrot just like they are. Yeah, that really sounds attractive. That's something I want to take with me and leave the rest behind when I go home at night. So I guess what my point of this video is after going through all the things that pretty much make up AA, I can't find anything I want to take with me and leave when I go home, even the communal things, the people that I connected with in AA that, like I said, became kind of friends with me. I mean, we actually stayed in touch after AA. None of them go to AA anymore, I might add. So, if you're going to AA for a sense of community, I'm afraid you're not going to get it, because if you turn your will and your life over to the group, you can end up in situations like, being 13 steps, somebody dealing you drugs, somebody knowingly ripping you off, somebody just doing whatever, when it comes to the types of games those sociopaths play in there. It's really interesting when you really think about the fact that the organization protects the guilty. It doesn't protect the innocent victims. That's not something I want to take home with me either, and as far as taking what I want, leaving the rest. I don't like that idea. I don't like the idea of a society that protects the predators, but lets the innocent people who are harmed and destroyed by it writes them off as they didn't work the program hard enough, that they didn't want it. They needed it, but they didn't want it. I don't really like the idea of going home at night and accepting that that's the rule of law in an organization. So that would be, so take what you like and leave the rest. Well, there's nothing to like. There's nothing to like. And so therefore, I didn't take any of it with me. I left it all. The only thing I do now is just take the experiences I saw in there and their phony doctrine, and I try to attack it as often as possible. Anyway, I guess that's about all for now. It's a 22-minute mark, so I don't want to get on too long here, and I will see you guys next week.